The following show contains adult content. It's not our intent to offend anyone, but we want to inform you that if you are a child under the age of 18 or get offended easily, this next show may not be for you. The content, opinions, and subject matter of these shows are solely the choice of your show hosts and their guests, and not those of the Entertainment Network or any affiliated stations. Any comments or inquiries should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening.
Hey everyone, and welcome to 50 Shades of Bullshit. I'm your host, Christine Lalonde, and this is the podcast where we uncover the truth about online dating. Now let's begin. Hey everybody, I'm Christine, and this is 50 Shades of Bullshit. Thank you for coming back again this week. I am very excited to introduce somebody who is our guest today. Her name is Kristen Alderson. Is that how you say it, Kristen?
Yeah, Alderson.
Yep. Alderson. She is a divorce coach, entrepreneur, and strategic life designer who helps women navigate the business of divorce with clarity, confidence, and future-focused plan. Her work centers on structure, design, decision-making, and intentional life design, not just emotional recovery. So she also works to help intersection of, your work sits around the psychology, strategic, and lived experience. Is that right, Kristen?
That's absolutely correct. Yes.
I can't speak today. What a good start.
Right? No worries. It's a lot of words.
It is. I was like, wait. Well, your approach, you blend practical, strategic with deep understanding of human behavior. Is that
yes.
Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, there's so much knowing, and we have so much access to information from a psychological standpoint and emotional, understanding. And so we have to figure out what to do with that at some point. Right. And so that's where my experience lies. Yes.
I love that. Well, I met Kristen here in Playa del Carmen when she was here on vacation with her friends. And I really gravitated towards you. I was very excited to get to know you. And she actually owns businesses it's in Indiana, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I'm really excited to have you on the show. I could not wait. Once I knew that you were a divorce coach, I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Well, today our topic is about designing your life after divorce. We're going to learn more about strategically designing your life first so that dating fits into your world, not the other way around. We're talking practical strategy. I cannot say the word today, so there we go. Not just emotional recovery, but actually moving from survival mode to intentional mode, and how those powerful choices in life and love can really help you grow and find the right person instead of falling into the same old patterns again. So I'm very excited to have you. I wanted to talk about this topic because we talk a lot about healing. We talk a lot about dating and self-improvement and how and where to find love. But, once in a while, I think we've talked a little about divorce and, what that practicality is like on, moving forward. How long should we wait? What should we do? And I think it's really, really special that there are dating coaches or divorce coaches, not dating, but divorce coaches to help you prepare for potential dating again and potential marriage if that's where you're heading to, and I love that you're a dating I cannot not say divorce. Jesus Christ, today is a day. God, the weather has been shit here for 3 days. It's been cold,
summer.
and so I'm a little like But yes, so what got you into being a divorce coach?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I was so honored to, for you to offer me to come on. It was such a pleasure to meet you and such a chance meeting, an encounter in Playa.
I love it.
And so, yeah, we definitely gravitated towards each other. It just really, I just felt energetically like your life has been aligning, and I was just like enamored with that. And that just kind of shone through, with your personality. So I just wanted to
Thank you.
acknowledge that quickly.
Oh,
But yes, so divorce coaching is, certainly something that not everyone is familiar with. We're obviously very familiar with both therapists and attorneys, right? Family law attorneys. And divorce coaching is somewhat new. And it's really, if you think about kind of your dream team, if you will, when you're going through something as heavy emotionally as divorce, kind of that dream team really is comprised of a therapist, a coach, and an attorney, and there's a reason for that, and we can talk about that
I
deeper.
love that.
But really, yeah, my focus is about, okay, how can we be in the most dysregulating event probably that could ever happen to a human? How can we take a step back, slow things down, and be strategic about how we move forward? And so that's really my role. Your therapist is here to help you dissect your past and understand how your past influences your decisions and your behaviors and your cycles. And then obviously your attorney is your legal representative, the person that advises you on the legalities within your own state. And so, I'm somewhere in the middle that can help you understand maybe some of your choices and your behaviors and your cycles, and also how to be strategic, how to even decide what it is that you even want.
Mhm.
And even though divorce coach is in my title, I'm not pro-divorce. I think it's important to, if you think you might be going down that path, you can even engage with a divorce coach to help you even decide if that's the right choice.
Yeah.
And also I want to say, in the world that we live in, the modern times that we live in, you don't just have to be married for there to be, a massive disruption to a breakup. And so I wish there was a better
Yeah.
word that would kind of symbolize both breakup and divorce. But, if you're
Yeah.
partnered and, own property or potentially have children or, whatever, are entangled with a person, and you decide to end the relationship, there's a lot that goes into that. So.
Yeah. Yeah, there really is. What do you think is the most common emotional or psychological pattern that you see right after someone divorces?
I think the biggest thing is just how overwhelming it is. You're
Hmm.
having to make decisions that could impact you and any children that you have for a long time. Some of the decisions that we make in our divorce cannot be easily unwound. They can't be pulled back very easily, and certainly not cheaply, right?
Yeah.
And so really I think like that overwhelm, you're having to think about financial stressors,
Yeah.
structural, changes, not to mention like the emotional upheaval of, you've had your person for however long you've had your person, and all of a sudden that relationship is just gone. And for so many people, that's the
Yeah.
foundation of their life and how they operate as a human being in the world. And so it's
Yeah.
just really, really dysregulating and can be overwhelmed. And so I think just cutting through all of that noise is really kind of that initial, thing that we see.
I remember when I was going through my divorce, I was pretty fucking mad. I was
Mhm.
mad because not because I really truly wanted to be with him, because he was really not a good person for me to be with.
Mhm.
Not saying he's not a good person in his own private life where he is now, but to me, he was not.
Mhm.
And for me, it wasn't about that. It was that I felt like he just blew my life up. And
Yeah.
I can, I can relate to women who go through divorce because, it may not be the best option to stay where you are. Maybe it is
Mhm.
the best thing to move forward. Maybe it isn't. Maybe getting counseling, like you said, in the right
Mhm.
way to proactively figure out if this is the right thing or not. But in the end, it's like when your life just like implodes, it is really difficult to catch your bearings.
It really
What do
is
you
because
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say it really is because it's everything at once. It's
Yeah.
everything. It's everything at once. So yeah.
Yes. So with that, what I was going to ask you is that what do you think survival mode actually looks like in real life after divorce?
Yeah, I mean, it can look different for different people, of course. It very much depends on, what your relationship looked like, what your role was in that relationship. If you are the primary decision maker or maybe the primary earner, that can look very different than someone who's maybe been a stay-at-home mom for, 16,
Mm,
17, 18 years or however long. So I think it
yeah.
really depends on where you're at in your own personal life and your journey and the role that you played in the
Mhm.
relationship.
Yeah, I can see that. How do you think, loneliness is a really big component, and identity loss because, we're wives, we're partners,
Mm,
where our identity is wrapped up in this relationship. So when you
yeah.
think of loneliness and identity loss, what do you think pushes women back into unhealthy dynamics because of that?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. And I think this applies to, women of all kinds, right? I think my
Yeah.
client base is typically that over functioning, more on paper successful woman who's probably is either an entrepreneur, owns her own business, is an executive, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But, women of all breeds and kinds encounter this because we sacrifice ourselves for our family. We
Mhm.
sacrifice, our emotions and our physical labor and all the invisible labor that women do, all of the things.
Yeah.
We do wrap ourselves up in the identity of a relationship, and if you're someone who, I used to refer to myself as a serial monogamist.
Mhm.
I had a serious boyfriend in high school. I had a serious boyfriend in early college. I ended up,
Yeah.
marrying my college sweetheart. We were together for a long time. And when all of that evaporates, after sort of that initial buzz or excitement of like, oh, I'm single again, once that sort of wears off, you're like, shit, I don't have somebody just to sit on the couch with and like watch this
Yeah.
Netflix series. And that can feel very disabling. And so I think that the loneliness is disabling because even if your relationship was dysfunctional or chaotic or even toxic, it's still like the chaos that and it's still familiar. Whereas, when the rug, has been ripped from under you, as you're describing, that's so destabilizing.
It is so destabilizing. I mean, I remember very distinctly after, we separated and we were heading down that divorce line, that thinking, "Oh, this just happened. I got to call him." It's like
Hmm.
your best friend for years and years and years. I mean, even if it's
Yes.
not forever and ever, I mean, your partner becomes your closest ally, your best friend who you tell everything to. And I
Yes.
remember just sitting back down going, ugh, how am I going to do this? I can't call him. And all of my
Hmm.
friends are tied up in this relationship. And I lost all my friends because
Mm.
their spouses were my husband's best friends. And they went with their husbands, which
Mhm.
I kind of understand, but I'm not that girl. If
Sure.
if 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 I had a couple that was best friends with, say, my partner and I would not lose that relationship with my girlfriend ever because
Right, right.
that's who I am. But I also know what I went through to make that to where I would never do that to somebody else.
Yeah.
And losing everything, I mean, literally everything but the kids,
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
traumatizing.
It is, and I remember when I got divorced, my daughters were very little. And,
Mhm.
I mean, at any point in a child's life, they say something funny or they do something for the first time. You want to share that with someone who cares. And usually the
Yeah,
person who cares the more as much as you is their other parent. And
yeah,
so yeah, even when it's not just a friendship, you're missing that piece of
yeah,
just basic celebration of joy, and like that's really hard. Like your friends care, obviously. I'm very fortunate to have an amazing circle of friends and girlfriends who
yeah,
are aunts to my children, and even they just couldn't possibly naturally care as much as their girl's
yeah,
dad. But it just is not necessarily an appropriate thing to be like, hey, guess what she just said, that was so funny, or did. That relationship changes and it just becomes something
yeah.
different.
I wish that there really was a way to make that appropriate, to make it to where, a couple sits down and says, "Hey, which unfortunately not a lot can do because there's a lot of anger around it, bitterness, a resentment, maybe the other cheated or didn't or whatever, just whatever the circumstances is. Raising my kids with my ex was brutal. For 15 years, it was brutal because it was not, I tried every time that I would say, oh, okay, I guess I'll take responsibility for this to move that boat forward, to have a relationship to where we could communicate about the kids easily, and just about them. It became about then, oh, well, you apologized for it, so it must have been your fault. And then it was a whole new cycle. So unfortunately, that is a really bad cycle we get in, and we tend to follow down the path of familiarity. And I've talked about this in a previous episode a few weeks ago about falling into the same patterns. And I want to talk about how redesigning your life after a divorce, but before you start dating again. So I have a question for you. If someone just got divorced today, okay, and they came to you, what should they focus on for the first 6 to 12 months instead of dating?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So I think, a big part of that initial, 6 to 12 months, is the business side of divorce. And, if you hire an attorney, they're going to have their specific way of deciding. But one of the things that attorneys don't necessarily have time for, honestly, and it's not necessarily their function or their area of expertise, is deciding what it is that you even want. I feel like a lot of my clients come to me and they just don't even know what they want. They know what they assume that they're going to get, if you will, or they assume they know what they should do based on other people that they know that have gotten divorced, or, maybe the particular state that they live in. They may be familiar with the laws and how things generally run. And if they're a high functioning woman, like the majority of us are, they're probably assuming that they're going to be taking on, the majority of the burden of raising the children alone and having to think about any financial gaps or housing issues or, anything like that. So I think when people first come to me, the thing that we talk about first is just slowing things down and understanding what is most important and to them, right? Like naming those number one and number two things, because you can't fight about everything. And, you can't say, I'm keeping the house, I'm getting full custody of the kids and, right? Like you have to really kind of hone in and decide what is most important to you. And so once you have that foundation, it's all up from there, right? It's like, okay, this is my focus, my 2-3 things that are the most important to me. And now how do I create a roadmap to get to that place? So it's dating is especially, so I always advocate, if you are going to get divorced, I always advocate for swiftness, right? And not rushing, but just moving through all of the issues as quickly as humanly possible, whatever, emotional load that you have capacity for, moving through that as absolutely quickly as you possibly can, because the longer that things linger, the more room there is for additional conflict to pop up, right? If someone moves on first, how is the other person going to react, right? And so really kind of that first nuts and bolts is the business of divorce, deciding what you want and trying to, strategically work through those things. And, even before, I don't really actually have a problem with someone dating quickly after a divorce, because I think that we actually find out a lot about ourselves when we interact with people and they hold up a mirror to our face. They tell us a lot about ourselves, and they tell us a lot about what's important to us and what we value and maybe what we would like, because the chances of you meeting your soulmate right immediately after a divorce is pretty slim, right? It's possible. I don't want to say it's not possible. I think it's really important, especially in probably that 6 to 12 months, like you said. It's just understanding that this is all an evaluation. This is like, I'm learning new people, I'm meeting new people, I'm getting a mirror held up to my face in a way that maybe has never had the opportunity to do that before, because I've been married for a million years, or whatever the case may be. So I think it's all in the approach of just understanding that we can slow down and we can kind of see what happens and unfolds.
When you help someone start to kind of rebuild their identity outside of
Mhm.
wife and partner, how do you do that?
Yeah, so for me personally, like you kind of mentioned like being a girl's girl, and like for me it's my friends, like investing in my woman to woman relationships, and
Mm,
is so important because and that's actually a huge difference between men and women in divorce. Like, women find community, they find people to support them and lift them up, and they find the
mhm.
people that they need to find, right, to help them on their healing journey.
Yeah.
And so I anything that can be done to encourage that, whether it's saying yes to an extra social event during the week. I'm actually in that case right now. I'm saying yes to an extra social event after we are done recording today, and I'm doing that because my friends are so important to me, and making sure
Mhm.
that I have a full life that is representative of who I am, and the things that I enjoy, the things that I value. When you have a already full life, when you do come across a potential partner, it's just going to be more magnetic instead of a detractor.
I love that. When people start building this idea that, okay, so they start building community, they start getting out there, they start, healing. I think healing is very important, you know, um,
Definitely.
addressing the things about your life or the things of the patterns that you keep repeating,
Mm-hmm.
to not find, the same type of person. So what does a strong foundation look like before someone opens like say a dating app to go out there?
Yeah, I think, oh, that's tricky. There's a lot to that question, right? There's multi-part answer to this one. I think, healing, we hear it in pop psychology all the time that healing is not linear. And it's really not. It's you're not
Yeah.
gonna go from A to B to C, and you're gonna be like, okay, yep, check that box. I'm over that. I'm no longer mad about that. I'm no longer hurt about this. That's just not how humans heal. That's not how we
Right.
get better or grow. I think something that's like top of mind is being willing to be uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
so, because I remember when I got divorced, I don't know, outside of traveling for work, I don't know that I ever had been in a restaurant by myself before. And like, it was so incredibly uncomfortable for me. I felt like everyone was staring at me. They were like, what is this girl doing here by herself? Like,
Relatable.
is she a weirdo? you know? So I think
Yeah.
the only way that we grow is if we allow ourselves space to be uncomfortable. And it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be, bone crushing, soul crushing uncomfortable. It's just like, just 1% every day. Just get a little bit more, I don't want to say used to it, but like a little bit more resilient, a little bit more comfortable in the uncomfort or discomfort,
Mhm.
is one way for sure. So yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh.
the whole dating apps, conversation is a whole separate beast, I feel like. But
Yeah, it
I
really
think
is.
the thing about, I think anytime that I have found myself, wanting to download a dating app, I'll do it and I immediately regret it, right? Just because
Mhm.
it's sort of a collection of people that maybe aren't comfortable being uncomfortable, because one of the things that a dating app allows is breadth, right? It's a lot of different people. It's, if you
Yeah.
go out to a restaurant or you go to a community event, you only have however many people show up to that event to interact with. But on a dating app, you could basically swipe endlessly, right? I mean, there are just so many
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
and it's a low stakes game, and low stakes investment gets you low quality outcomes. And so I think if you want to approach a dating app, there's nothing wrong with that. And it honestly teaches you something, right? If you allow it to, and it allows you to see people and see different kinds of people. But as long as you, I think, approach it as, this is an experiment, I'm going to learn about myself, I'm going to learn about other humans. I think
Yeah.
that's probably one of the only healthy ways to to approach a dating app.
I think that we're always talking about how other people have red flags. I
Hmm.
like to look at what ours could look like, before we even go out there. What do you
Right.
think are some of the red flags that say someone is repeating the same patterns versus making new choices?
Yeah, good question. And right, and red flags in the way that you're talking about them and the way that I'm hearing you ask this question is like, what do we do that's behaviorally like a non-starter, right? To be
Yes.
dateable. I
Yes.
think
Yes.
right, like just basic emotional availability, basic, healing, where you don't feel the need to tell everyone you ever encounter about how horrible your ex is or how they blew up your life. Like
Yes.
there's basic and level of entry. But as
Yes.
far as patterns go, if we don't put in enough work to, understand kind of retroactively the kind of people that we choose and that we are choosing, we are doomed to repeat it. It's just going to, it's just going to be in different packaging. It's just going to look like a
Yeah.
different person. I used to have this joke that, oh, if you're tall and have tattoos and need therapy, you're my type, right? And and like it's funny
Yeah.
now because but it's true. Like if you are self-aware enough of yourself and your own patterns and have the ability to sort of retroactively look at your patterns and behaviors and look at the men that you've been interested in or you've dated or that you're attracting and saying what do these men all have sort of in common and what is making me attracted to them. Like that kind of retrospect I think is really important.
Mhm.
And a simple exercise honestly is journaling about it, is saying
Mm.
what drew me to this person, or what characteristics does this man have with my primary caregivers, and so what are the things that are drawing me in.
I think that's such a great idea because in the past, one of my, you know, issues was that I didn't think journaling would be helpful. I thought
Hmm.
journaling was stupid. I think also I did. I thought it was stupid because honestly, I was afraid of what could be seen. What was I going to reveal?
Yes.
And but I had to do it a few times, like with whatever course or class or acting thing I was in. They'd always make us do journals, and I'm like, God damn, another journal. And so I have like 15 different journals where it was a stop, start, stop, start. And
Uh-huh.
one of the things that I realized that when I was selling everything I owned and moving to Mexico is that I found my journals and I look back and I
Mm,
see the growth.
yes.
And if I had done it the way that you're describing back in the day and
Hmm.
looked at it, maybe a month or two down the line and
Hmm.
really relook and look at it, all the signs are there. I mean, you say things in there and you write things in there that
Hmm.
are very telling, that I've found kind of gives you like a hindsight 2020 early. Like if you start to date someone, write all the things about it and then set it
Hmm.
aside. If you are continuing to see them, maybe look at it again and see if there's things that you can relate to. Are there things that you're repeating the patterns? Is this the same
Right.
kind of person you just fucking divorced?
Right, exactly. Or is it the complete opposite, right?
Right.
Or is it the complete opposite, and and then maybe that's a subconscious thing or it's a conscious thing. I think a lot of times we will associate a name, or like I will never date another this name,
Yeah.
or I will never date another person with this profession, and then we have this tendency to like overcorrect and swing all the way over
Hmm.
here, and then they end up being the same fucking person. They're just have a different job and a different name. And so that's what I mean by different packaging, right? Like if we don't slow down and really pay attention to what's drawing us in, that is going to happen. It's just going to keep it is just going to keep repeating.
Yeah.
So, and talking about the journal thing, it is interesting to come across an old journal, and anytime I've done that and I've read it, I'm like, I am so glad those are not the problems that I have today. So it does allow you to see
Oh my
growth.
God,
And so
yes.
while it is a painstaking process, and it takes a lot of
Hmm.
discipline to do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Man, for
Agreed.
hindsight, it is so good. Hmm.
It is so good. It's great to really be able to look back in your own words because who do you trust more than your own self to
Right.
tell you the truth?
Yeah. And
And
if you
some,
have a hard time trusting
Mhm.
yourself, that's a really good way to build trust with yourself. You're like, I fucking knew this back then.
Yes,
Pay attention to yourself
yes,
more next time.
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. So, how long should someone, do you think, realistically should wait before seriously dating again?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I this is such a ambiguous answer, but I think it really depends. It really depends on, if you were in what sounds like your case where you felt blindsided, by the divorce, there's probably a lot of processing that you need to do to understand what
Right.
went sideways, there's got to be a grace period for
Cheating. I
yourself.
mean,
For-
sorry.
right. Well, and like a forgiveness period for yourself of like, because I think sometimes,
Mm,
especially as women, we tend to ruminate and say, how did I miss this? Or how did I not, catch on to this? Or whatever the case may be. Like, however long it takes for you to feel like you can trust yourself again is
yeah.
is really important. And that can be tricky because sometimes we need to practice, right? Like sometimes we need to dip our toe in, and we need to be okay with failing. And I think that's something that we need to normalize. Is like not
Yes.
every person we date, even when we're dating with intention, is going to be our forever. And so we
Hmm.
have to have the right mindset. And I think, a couple
Yeah.
trusted friends and or a therapist can really help you kind of set that intention and
Hmm.
can kind of give you some feedback if, maybe you're ready. And then you know what? You can try it. And if it goes fucking sideways, you can backpedal and say, I'm not ready for this. So I think it really just depends on your appetite, your capacity, all of those things.
I love that. Last week, we talked about emotionally unavailable men, but I would love to hear
Mhm.
what your thought is on what does emotional availability actually look like in real life
Yeah.
after a divorce.
Good question. And this one is really actually pretty tightly coupled with my like primary client base, which is over functioning, high functioning women.
Yeah.
Because in a very close friend of mine is has known me for a very long time, knows me at a soul level, has said, Kristen, your threshold for bullshit is like way up here. Right.
Yeah.
And so when I encounter an emotionally unavailable person, a man, because I date men,
Yes.
I find myself able to sort of like not explain it away, but just be okay with it because I'm like, I'm hyper independent. I have my own life. I own a business. I own my own home. Like I don't need much from a partner. And so my threshold for putting up with that is probably a lot higher than an average person. And so I think that's like a tricky, dangerous situation because um it can also be like a cycle that you get stuck in because you're so used to over
Mhm.
functioning that it feels normal, and it feels like, hey, I'm used to being an executive and answering, being accountable, answering to people, making decisions all day. When I encounter a person that's maybe not able to do that, it's just kind of like any other day, right? And so you're already
Mhm.
sort of conditioned to put up with and tolerate that kind of behavior. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, if you're coming out of divorce and you've been married for a long time and you are the primary person at home, managing the relationship, managing the children's lives,
Hmm.
and you get out there and you just, like you said, you overfunction and you allow things to fall through. That's where I think journaling could help a lot
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
kind of take a step back. And I find that women, speaking from my own personal experience and from the women that I've encountered, throughout
Hmm.
building relationships with them, and this podcast has helped me see that um, we tend to, um, what's the word I'm looking for? We tend to accept bullshit a lot more
Hmm.
because we are used to taking care of everything. And I find that we tend to be in our masculine era a lot because, taking care of business is a really masculine side of things. And I find that I'm having to be more in my, feminine era to soften myself. I watch girlfriends trying to do the same thing, trying to, we're single, we take care of everything.
Yeah, because even in relationship, we take care of everything, right? And so that is really really tricky, right? Like when I can't tell you how many, men I have care taken for who did not deserve it, right? Who I have who I have made home cooked meals for, because when you are like, to your original point of like when you go from being a wife, that is when that's your role as a wife and or mother, like you're so used to that, and it feels like love, right? Like you're offering love and caregiving, for lack of a better word, to another human who maybe hasn't earned it. That does really create like this recipe for attracting an avoidant person or an emotionally unavailable person, because you are really kind of like filling in the gaps of where this person is lacking. And it is a really strange thing to have to kind of unlearn some of that, especially as if you're an independent woman who wants to date a man and not be his mother. Some of these things really are things you have to unlearn, and you have to embody that softer side, which the argument could be that we're designed to be, right? Like we're
I also think that it gives space, it holds space for your other person to step up, to carry some of the balance here, to also give them the space to be something for you that you may not realize you need. Because as high functioning women, we have our own places, our own money, our own life, our own style, our own everything, but there's a space and time for a partner, I think, if that's what you really want. If you don't, hey, be your single self and live that life, that's great. But if you want to hold space for somebody else to be in your life, you have to be able to give them the room to be needed, to be wanted, to shoulder half of that, relationship, responsibility.
Absolutely. And you really just decoded the way to overcome overfunctioning. And that is to take a step back and allow that person to rise up, right? Because they will either rise to the occasion or they will disappoint you greatly. And all of that is information, right?
Great information.
Yeah, it's all data. It's all data. It's all information, right? And that's what's hard, because like we are humans with feelings, and we have pasts, and we have pain, and we have triggers, and we have all these things. And at the same time, the evolved brains that we have are also capable. We're capable of having these, deep and complicated emotions, but we are also capable of thinking through things logically and clearly with data, with information that we are given every day, every second, right?
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. So, I have like this thought, like, what do you think is the difference between being ready to date and being ready for a relationship?
Ooh, good question. I think, the relationship piece, I think the advice that I have not necessarily embodied, but that I see that I definitely agree with, is dating multiple people, right? Like when you're in that realm of dating, like you're learning about yourself, you're learning about other people, you're learning about, oh, maybe that's like a sensitive place, like that's a place I haven't addressed yet. And different people are going to bring out different aspects of that for you. And so the early dating part is, trying to experience different people, having different conversations, being in all kinds of different rooms and different settings. Relationship really should be saved for, the person who, sort of stands out from that crowd. So it's not, I think it's important to, not necessarily approach dating as looking for a relationship with any specific person, but when you're dating with intention, you're experiencing different kinds of people, and then what ends up sticking, what ends up working for both parties is who you should maybe form a relationship with.
I think that building your life before adding another
Mhm.
partner is really, crucial, that your
Yes.
partnership should be a bonus, not a rescue plan. I know for
Yes.
years
Yes.
after my divorce, I thought, oh my God, I need a man to help me pay the bills and help me not just be so stressed out, because I'm doing all the work by myself, and someone
Mhm.
to have my back with my goddamn kids who, like,
Yeah.
as they got
Yeah.
older, got harder to be kind to me. Uh, but I thought that I needed rescued, and then I realized at
Mm.
the end of raising my kids and they all going off and living their lives and doing their thing, that I didn't need rescuing.
No.
I you know I should have been looking for, really the person who would, be that I don't know, partner
Like
to
a
build something with, not to rescue.
Yeah, a compliment to your life, right? It's
Yeah.
someone who, shares similar values to you and maybe has similar
Mhm.
long-term goals, but this person should be a compliment to your life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not required for you to function, because, that's not good either, right? When you put,
Yeah.
too much and I do think that we put too much, weight into our partner, right? You're my best
Yeah.
friend, you're my lover, you're my default, you're my plus one. You
Yeah.
can, if you don't have confidence in, who you are in your relationship. I was just telling my girls this, actually. We have our best conversations in the car, and they're of an age where they
Yes.
still really like me. So I'm in a really sweet spot right now where they're where they're
Love that for
independent,
you.
right? They're independent, they can take care of themselves, they can feed themselves if they need to, and they still like me. So I'm in a really, really good spot. And for forever, we've always had our best conversations in the car. And I was
Yeah.
explaining to them, I'm like, having your relationship with each other is really where this came from, is like one of the most important relationships you'll ever have. But the relationship that you have with yourself is the most important relationship that you have. Knowing who you are, trusting who you are, trusting your instincts, trusting your thoughts, and not squashing down your feelings. Being a good person, being a person of integrity, of good character, all these things, like knowing yourself, knowing what's important to you, and the things that are just non-starters for you. And you can't get any richer than that. And
Agreed.
yeah, and so that, when you start from a basis of, I know who I am, I know what I want, I know what I value in, a person who's allowed to orbit in my space, or potentially lay on my couch. Like, if you are not if you are not putting in the time to know who
Mhm.
you are and what's important to you, man,
Agree.
you're going to continue to pick the same person, just with different packaging.
Yeah, I have a few to add to that. That was an incredible list. Thank you so much. I have some things to add to that I felt have
Mhm.
been values for me.
Yeah.
And that is having a stable routine.
Mhm.
That helps a lot. Social life that's not dependent on a partner.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
Financial clarity. Without that, you worry and stress. Just that was really tough for me, and I realized that I was avoiding it. And having that clarity really just changes that. It gives you a sense of relief. Having
Mhm.
hobbies and personal joy,
Yes.
and being comfortable being alone was my biggest
Yes.
thing.
That gave me the chills,
Yeah.
because that really is huge when you're used to being in a default partnership. That is
Mhm.
so, so important, because it's just
Very.
so foreign. It's so foreign, and it feels so weird, and you feel like a giant weirdo when you walk
Yeah.
into places where you would normally, even if you're just going to the Target or Lowe's or whatever, right? If you're
Yeah,
used to that, yeah, it
that
feels so
was rough for
strange.
me too. Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
for me
think
too.
that if dating feels like a solution, you're not ready. Yeah.
100%, and like
Yeah.
the financial piece, unfortunately, I think, is really important, for a lot of women too, right? Like, where if you're, if you've been in a dynamic where, somebody else has been providing for you financially, like that could very easily drive some of your decisions and make you make decisions too quickly based
Yeah.
on when you think about scarcity mindset, if you're like, I won't be able to survive if I don't have somebody, paying for a portion of my bills, like that doesn't put you in a position where you can choose, you know, confidently and what's best for you.
Yeah, I think so. I think defining your life vision and not your partner vision is kind of a good route to maybe start. Most men, women ask, what man do I want? And I think the better question is, what life do I want to live daily? And that's
Yes.
where I find myself. And, I ask myself a lot, does this partner fit into this life? Would dating disrupt or enhance my routine? And I think that
Right.
kind of flips that power dynamic, completely. And I think that will help a lot of people if you can get that mindset.
Oh, certainly. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just knowing what's important to you, having your routine, and, being, convicted in the things that make you happy and bring you joy, and understanding that another person can't do that in the same way that you can do it for yourself.
True that. So I I was thinking about this episode before we started, and I was thinking, what is the most valuable, thing that I could, give for this? And my thought was, maybe create a life filter for dating instead of a do I like him filter for dating.
Yeah.
And I came up with 4 things, and you tell me if you think this
Okay.
works. Does he fit my lifestyle? Was my
Mm-hmm.
first question.
Yep.
Does he respect my routines?
Yeah.
Is the
Huge.
second one.
Mm-hmm.
Does he add peace or chaos?
Mm-hmm. Massive.
And,
Yes.
and is this relationship easy to maintain?
Right. Right.
Because I
Right.
think that helps with compatibility versus chemistry, because we can get wrapped up in the chemistry and go, oh my God, I like him, he's so great. But does he fit these 4 questions for you?
I like that, and I think there's nuance that I actually want to rewind to what you said about, do I like him? I think that's actually a really good question to ask, because I think a lot of times we just want people to like us. And people will tell us about themselves. They'll, you really have to believe people when they tell you about who they are, right? And I think
Right.
sometimes, especially that overfunction, high functioning woman is going to say, but I can change him. I want him to like me. And even if it's not a conscious thing of like, it's so actually asking, do I even like him? I think that's the perfect first question. Do I even like him? Do I like his lifestyle? Do I like what he has designed for himself? Is he in a period of rebuilding? No, thank you. Does he know who he is? Green flag. Like, does he have routine? Does he have, a career? Is he satisfied with his life and the life that he's built? Like, those are, even though those are more partner centric, as you're evaluating people, I think those are really important questions too.
I think so too. I love that. Some of the practical things that I think that we would want to consider, lovely women out there, before we, move on with a new relationship, is stop outsourcing happiness. If you need validation, excitement, security, and purpose from another person or from dating, you will choose emotionally unavailable partners.
100% every time.
Yeah. And people who need love the most often choose the worst matches. So let's focus on that and think about that. We only have a few minutes left, but I do want to say that intentional dating paces, like that pacing that you do when you start intentionally dating, a healthy post-divorce dating looks like, in my opinion, okay, you tell me if this, rolls with that,
Yeah.
is slow your pace down, have
Yes.
clear boundaries, no rushing intimacy for assurances.
Right.
Take your time. If he's going to stick around, then he will stick around.
Yes.
No merging lives too quickly. Keep your life together on your own for a bit, and keeping independence intact, because dating should feel calm, not consuming.
Absolutely.
So.
Amen, sister. Yeah.
Yeah. I have one last thing I'd like to say before I ask you to tell everybody how to find you.
Okay.
I think the most important thing for me that I learned is you are not rebuilding your love life. You're rebuilding your freaking life.
Yes.
Love gets invited into it later.
Yes.
So
I love
that's
that.
my
I love
final.
that. I'm going to steal that because I think
Yeah.
that's great. Love is
Oh,
invited later. Yeah.
yeah.
Very
Thank you.
good.
So tell us,
Awesome.
before we are done, tell us how everybody can find you.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, beyond.the.breakup. So that's a great place just to send a DM, and my email and my phone number are listed there. You can reach out. I'm happy to. I always do free consultations just to make sure that we're a mutually good fit. If my style doesn't jive with you, then I want you to know that immediately, right? And I will, spend
Yeah.
time with you to explain the process and how it all works and like how we might work together. So feel free to reach out to schedule something like that, and we'll take it
I
from
love
there.
it. I think that therapy is a great thing for people. I think, having a good attorney is another, but I think the most valuable thing, Kristen, personally, is having a really great divorce coach that can help you find
Mhm.
where you need to go, how you need to go, and really who you are.
100% agree. Yeah, I wish I had a me when I was going through a divorce.
God bless America. I would not have had 15 fucking years of trauma if I had had
Right.
you. God. Oh,
Uh,
so reach out to Kristen. She's amazing. Thank you for being here with us today. I'd love
of
to have you
course.
back. Anytime you want to come back, let's have you. You're
I would love to.
amazing.
Oh, thank you. I
Thank you,
love you.
everyone. Right. Thank you, everyone, for coming again this week. Same time, same place next week. And well, I don't know what we're doing next week, but we're doing something. So come back and see us. And until then, let's just keep this shit real. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share with your friends, like and follow us on Instagram at 50 Shades of _bullshit and Facebook at 50 Shades of Bullshit. Thanks so much for listening, and we really hope to see you again next week.